It is my turn, and I'm glad I get to go right before you, Daniel, because I am going to eviscerate everything you're going to say, because I already know what you're going to say, and it's going to be awful. I mean, just putrid. Is that what this next topic is about, Daniel? What's segment 2 here all about?
Yeah, so the next subject is about table talk, and that's a broad word, so I'm going to be a little more specific with it, and so that you guys understand where we're coming from. Andy. Okay, so table talk is, in this conversation, gangsta engineer.
Gangsta locomotive.
Yeah. Hashtag gangster locomotive. Okay. So yeah, table talk. In this conversation is going to be the idea of how much you should be able to say strategy-wise to your opponent. So example, when you are playing a game of, let's say, Root. Let's say we're playing Root. And there's this obvious move that the marquee should be taking, and they just don't do it. And when they don't do that, they are going to allow the Eerie to come in and just wreak havoc on all that you're doing, all that they're doing. You should be able to say something and go, hey, do you realize that if you take that move, you just handed the game over? And then they go, oh yeah, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out. So that's what I mean by table talk. So are you obligated in a game to actually point out the obvious move when somebody did not get that? Or do you just let them take the move and go, well, I'm going to win now because they took that ridiculously stupid move that nobody should have ever have taken? So what do you guys think? I'll save from my opinion to the end. So what about John? What do you think?
Well, interesting point that you bring up there, because in the game Root, you're pretty much doing table talk the whole time, and unless we're the only ones that do that, and I find that hard to believe, because that's one of those games where, I think we've discussed it a little bit before, it's so asymmetric. You can get so caught up in what you're doing that you don't pay attention to what someone else is doing, and you can't see that they're two turns away from winning unless somebody points it out to you. And that happens a lot in Root, where you're like, hey, you gang up on somebody. I know people gang up on me whenever I'm the Eerie, and you just start out with all these points, and it's like, no, we can't let him keep doing this. So I don't know if that is a game that you would want to limit table talk to. Now, in other games, I would say it would be towards the end of the game that I would find it acceptable, not the whole game, where maybe you are going to give somebody an advantage late in the game, and you could point that out to somebody that, hey, I know you want to do that, but you see X, Y, and Z could happen. So I don't know, it's a fine line for sure, but I think you just kind of let the game play along. To me, unless it's a game like that where it's area control, I think the little table talk as far as strategy goes is probably the better.
Okay. All right.
Perfect timing again. But that's what I got. What say you there, Chris? How much do you table talk during those 18xx games, buddy?
Okay, well, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of time to do it because the game's so long. But actually, the games are so intense. Since games are so intense, like there actually isn't a lot of time to do it because you're thinking about all the different moves you can make and what if they do that and that stuff. But we'll table that for a different time. But it's time to buckle in, people, because it's time for story time with Chris, baby. I feel very confident I know the origin of this topic. A few weeks ago, actually it's been a couple months ago, Daniel and I and a few other people were playing a game of Power Grid. And the board state was in such a way that if Daniel just built a bunch of buildings, he would have built to 17 and he would have had more power plants than us because we just didn't have the power. He would have powered more cities than us because we just didn't have the power plants. And so Daniel has played before, which again, I'll get back to my particular here, but this
5
puts
years
it
ago.
in,
But go ahead.
This puts it into perspective exactly what I'm talking about, this situation. So I was playing with Daniel, experienced gamer, as well as other experienced gamers. I looked in the eyes of the other experienced gamers. They all saw the board. We all looked at each other and we're like, yep, this game's over. We're just waiting for Daniel to go through the motions, and he didn't. So we're like, okay, well, we're just going to play it along for another round, and hopefully maybe we can make up the difference. Well, truth be told, we did play for another hour, and then Daniel beat us in the most beat-down fashion of all time I've ever seen in Power Grid. He needed more. He could have built more buildings that were possible, so more cities that were possible. So My opinion is it depends on the player. If they are a seasoned player and they should know better, they know the game, they know how to play games, stuff like that. No, you don't tell them because there's no reason to. I mean, I guess if you want to be that guy and try to get a personal advantage by telling them like, oh, don't go there and do that because it will help you when around you trying to help yourself. I guess it's kind of shady, but sure, whatever. That's fine. But in my opinion, if they don't know any better, then be helpful to people. But if they should know better, let them figure it out themselves.
All right, well.
That's what I did, and it came back to haunt me even more.
It did. And you should have told me that I could have won the game because we could have ended that misery 1 hour before it ended. No, it was a great game, actually. I say misery, but I rekindled my love for the game. So, all right, what about Andy? I believe it's your turn. What do you say about Table Talk?
It is my turn, and I'm glad I get to go right before you, Daniel, because I am going to eviscerate everything you're going to say, because I already know what you're going to say, and it's going to be awful. I mean, just putrid. There is one reason that you play board games, in my opinion. Do you know what that reason is? Anyone?
To have fun?
When?
No, I'm going to tell you. In the words of the great Herm Edwards,
you play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game.
Exactly. You play to win the game. So can you talk during games? Should there be table talk? Absolutely. But only if it benefits you. I don't want to see any of this nonsense where you're like, oh, that's the better move. You should do that. First of all, why are you helping someone? What's your goal here? Are you trying to get them into the hobby? Are you trying to be a nice guy? Or are you trying to play to win the game? I mean, we're here for a reason, and that is to eviscerate our opponents. I mean, that's why I'm on this show, at least. I take pride in it. I did it last time. I hope I do it again. But look, here's the deal. No, I don't like this. The other thing is, there's a lot of people that don't want those ideas, those advice. I mean, that's kind of belittling. If I'm learning a game and people go, well, Dad, you didn't do that right. Let me learn. Let me learn by failing. That's what's wrong with America now. It's wrong with everything. All society. It's all messed up, man. Everybody wants to give a participation award. No, absolutely not.
All right. Well, is that it?
Tell us how you
Are
really
you done?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay.
No timer on him.
I was
Wow.
white hot and I loved it.
Yes. Okay. So yes, there are reasons we play the games. It's to have fun. It's to win, but it's also to socialize. So when we are socializing in a game, it is common for common mistakes to be made. And when I say table talk to help people strategize, I'm not saying like, hey, John, this is your best move. And John's like, what? I didn't even know it was my turn. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when the person looks at the table and goes,
That sounds realistic.
when they look at the table and go, oh, wait, what just happened? And if you don't bring it up in the moment, what's going to happen is Andy time. And you're going to have the person sitting there for 15 minutes going, what's the best move? And the whole time you're like, it's right there. It's obviously right there. Just tell them. Just tell them that's their best move. Now, if you tell them and they choose not to do it, that's on them. But if it could cut 20 minutes off of a game, for the love, tell them what their best move is. So that's my first point. My second point is when you take a hard-nosed approach to a game, it can really ruin the experience. If you accidentally, if you're like a kid and you're like, I'm going to move my king here, because we all know the chess rules, right? And you're like, move it, and then you take your finger off, you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. And they're like, no, you can't take that back. Like, those are bad experiences, and who wants to play in a game like that? And I feel like the lack of tabletop is exactly that. If somebody is really struggling, they don't know what they're doing, and they are about to just literally hand over the game because they took the stupidest move. I'm not even talking about like, there's 3 moves, they're kind of all equal, one's better, but the other 2 are like, maybe. I'm talking about like the stupid move. Like, nobody in their right mind would take this move. You need to let them know. You need to be like, hey, that's not quite right. And then go back to Chris's point about the power grid. That would have ended 1 hour earlier if you would have just told me I had enough to win the game. I didn't realize I had enough to win the game. Anyways, there you go. Table talk is completely appropriate.
So, Daniel, by your logic there, you're okay with me taking back moves then?
100%. Yes, as
Are you
long as
kidding me? Daniel takes back back moves all the time.
I know. Who do you
That
think
is
you're
terrible.
talking
What
to?
a terrible way to play.
Wait a minute, I need to retcon that.
Wait, did
and
I
then
just
that's
lose
put
a
these
point for
points
that?
back.
No, that's ridiculous. No, you do take back turns. If the board state hasn't changed, then it's completely okay to take your turn back and go like, wait, we need to move.
So-
But that's a topic for another day.
When I first got into board games, we played by a very simple rule. Do you know what that rule was? Laid it, played it.
No, that is
Laid it, played it, baby.
No, that is a way. And how many of those people do you still play games with, Andy? The laid it, played it people. Yeah.
I'll have to think about that.
Exactly. I've heard of some table flip moments with you in your game groups in the past. So
Actually, the funny thing is I say that, but I'm the worst violator of that always. I'm always like, oh, look, can I please do this, please? I meant to do this, please let me.
yes.
Anyway.
No, I mean maybe you're probably the worst at like asking and whining about it, so to speak. And that not like whining, but like that, like please, can I do this? But actually, the worst offender of the actual thing is Daniel. Like
That's
Daniel, like if you haven't played a game with Daniel
That's
for 5
fair.
minutes, if he's not like, oh wait, let me go back 3 turns real quick.
No. I don't go back that far.
Crazy.
But you're right, because again, games should be fun, and if you're not having fun and enjoying the experience, then why play? And if I took a stupid move because I was hastily being rushed or going through it, I should be able to take my move back. But why does they keep coming back to this? That's not what the topic was about.
to win
This
the
topic
game.
was about whether or not you could let it. Well, you know what, guys?
Hello? You play to win the game.
Whatever. No, you play to have fun, and you know it. So let us know. Do you play to have fun, or do you play to win?